This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose. Hello, I'm Maritza Barone. Welcome to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast. Has there ever been a moment in your life where you heard, read, or were told something that you simply could not unhear? Something that made you stop in your tracks and helped you to see the world differently in some way, a better way. On this podcast, we create those life-changing moments for you through interviews with some of the world's most profound people around the globe. We explore groundbreaking ideas in health and well-being.
What we're really doing is getting to the root cause of your symptoms. And often we find that that is an emotional block that we have been carrying around in our body that's become almost crystallized and created a physical symptom.
Relationships.
And for women as well, when I talk about respect, it's called respecting yourself, which is don't overgive. Women will tend to put themselves one down, and then wake up at 40 and go, wait a second, I am woman, I deserve respect.
Personal and professional transformation.
This is true of any skill. You only develop it by doing it. And so, if you don't get out there and just start doing it and being a bit rough around the edges at the beginning, you can't work on your craft. And so it can't turn into something.
Spirituality.
Because I think when we know who we really are, we think we're our name and our body and our form and our hair and our clothes and our skin and but when we know who we really are as infinite beings, we're free.
And so much more. So settle in. This might just be a big day for you where you hear something that changes your life in the most transformative way. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for being here and clicking play with us today, because on this episode, I welcome the incredible mind that is Radek Sali. He's an Australian entrepreneur, business leader, and prominent figure in the health and wellness industry. Radek is the former CEO of well-known supplement brand Swisse, and is now the founder and executive chairman of the wellness brand Wanderlust, and the chairman of purpose-driven investment group Light Warrior. He's an entrepreneur with heart that is motivated by building businesses on purpose, for profit, with passion. Radek's recently launched a brand new book, How to Build a Billion-Dollar Business. And it talks to his experiences all the way from his youth, his upbringing, selling Swisse in a multi-billion-dollar deal, and all of the lessons he's learnt along the way, the good, the bad, and the ugly. In this chat, we talk about how entrepreneurship and purpose should work together, how being fully invested into the work that you do will achieve success, the bold and risk-taking mindset of a leading CEO and entrepreneur, how to use your skills across industries and learn how to disrupt, and so much more. This is for you. If you want to hear what it takes to become a leader in your field, you want to learn how to adapt to certain situations in business and life, and get motivated to work on your passion with heart and purpose. Can't wait for you to hear this conversation with Radek Sali. Welcome, Radek Rudolph Sali, to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast.
The full name, I like that. I haven't had that.
I knew I'd get a laugh out of you for that. I have found out your middle name and I love it. I think you've got such a unique name, and why not use it in all its glory when we can, hey?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I want it back.
Exactly. All right. So where are you joining us from these days?
I'm in Brunswick Heads, near Byron Bay.
Yeah. And what's life like up there? What inspired that move? Because I know you're a former Melburnian like I was.
Look, I think it was, you don't pick where you grow up, and it was a wonderful time growing up in Melbourne. I love Melbourne. And then we moved to Flinders, which is about an hour south of Melbourne. That was beautiful. We got 20 acres of land, and we lived there for the last sort of 7 years before we left Victoria. And we'd always talked about being in Byron Bay. Byron Bay has actually always been our backup plan for if things went really bad during my time at Swisse. we had an agreement that we'd live in a caravan by the sea, and Byron Bay wasn't that expensive back then, so it was pretty achievable. But now that we've sold Swisse and had really a choice of where we could live, very fortunate to have that. Yeah, COVID sped things up like it did for a lot of people, and it sped the decision up for us to move north, and we settled on Brunswick Heads with 120 acres around us, so we're loving it here.
Ah, bliss. And I think just before we hit record, we were talking about me living in Fiji and now on the Sunshine Coast. I said, I don't want to wear shoes. That's why I moved up here. So let's just check. Are you wearing shoes right now? Here we go.
No.
No, me neither. I'm not lifting my legs up like you did, though.
Yeah. I'm so graceful.
There's something about not wearing shoes that just drops you right down into, being who you are authentically and being yourself and just being super relaxed. So I'm glad to have you on barefoot because we're going to have a super relaxed chat and I want to get to the heart and soul of who you are. But you've got a big year coming up, really. I've been doing a lot of, research into what's new for you and what's coming up. So tell us a little bit about how the year started and what you're really excited about leading into 2024?
Yeah, so the year started with purposely just doing nothing for a few weeks, knowing that it was a really big year ahead and just getting the headspace right for telling what I think is an important story to share. And that's a book that we've been writing for the last 8 years now that started out with Hatchet Publishers approaching me in EY Entrepreneur of the Year Awards and saying, we'd love you to write a book for us. So I thought they were joking. I already, many years ago when we were doing karaoke, someone approached me about singing in a band. And I thought it was fantastic. And he was a manager, but after about an hour of conversation, it was quite clear he was just having me on. So, so I was quite like, is this person having me on for this book? So, but no, we were serious. We got a contract. The story actually amounted to just a big rant and not much. And so Hatchet fired me, and I found a new publisher. And I got a co-author in Bernadette Schwartz, who's told many business stories. And we met through LinkedIn just by chance. The universe delivered her once I was at wit's end with the book and knowing that it was pretty much going nowhere. Got rid of the ranting and helped me craft something that was going to be really relevant to budding entrepreneurs, but also be a bit of a template for how perhaps business should be in the future.
So it's called How to Build a $1 Billion Business on Purpose for Profit with Passion. I've read the first chapter. I loved it. I sort of knew a lot of that stuff about you because I've interviewed you a couple of times before, and I found it really interesting for a number of reasons. But number one was that in your teenage years, and for those who read the book will find out, but you were quite messy, unorganized, didn't have that pathway to academia, I suppose, back then that you do now. And this mindset, the mindset probably always was there, but how were you as a teenager? Explain it to us and explain the process of becoming the adult that you are today.
I'll start with, I was awkward, gangly, and thought I was cool, but wasn't that cool. And whatever kind of got my focus and attention I would do well in, but if it didn't grab me or it didn't kind of connect with my purpose, I wasn't that inspired by it. So yeah, for me, intuitively, purpose became something that was really important to me from a young age, and anything that I find connection with, I'll give all of myself to. And if it doesn't, it's very hard to drag me into it and kind of, it's a little bit like when you first get introduced to public speaking and the teacher says you've got to speak about this topic that you know nothing about, and just basically have to read it, and it might be something that that you're completely disinterested in, and so that spoils your ability to speak because you're scarred by, well, that's what public speaking's like. And to me, if you're talking about your purpose, if you're talking about what you know and love, you do it with excitement, the focus that it truly deserves, and you bring on your best. So yeah, fortunately, that kind of level of dysfunction worked out for me as a way of kind of creating function in my life.
It reminds me of that quote where people say, I'm not lazy, I'm just uninspired. And for me too, like I resonated with what you were saying because I was known as the lazy teenager, but I'd never found a thing that I was excited about and passionate about. And I think it's such an important point for people to really drive home. And it's probably driven home in your book quite significantly, is that finding something that lights you up will give you ongoing passion and momentum and endless motivation to keep going even when the times get tough. Would you agree with that?
100%. They will get tough, and you being able to be resilient enough to get through those times because you're doing what you love is so important.
Yeah, exactly. So I wish schools, I don't know about you, but I wish schools would really hone in on that a lot more. And I've only now noticed, because I have teenage daughters who are now in high school, that the schooling system hasn't changed that much since I was at school. So I'm curious to know what you think of the current schooling system and what you'd actually change if you were in charge in this situation.
Yeah, I think that we are in a society where we have near full employment. We're very lucky here in Australia with this kind of beautiful balance of capitalism and democracy. Yeah, it's got plenty of room to improve, but it's a pretty amazing life that we live. And we have one of the highest salaries in the world, and earning capacity and riches per capita globally. So it doesn't really get much better than growing up in a society like ours. So I think from an education point of view, things haven't changed much, and society has. And it being a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more focused on not only straight out IQ, but emotional intelligence, and going deeper. And we're seeing that change with more focus on meditation and kind of the creative aspects, but it's definitely not at the core of learning like IQ is. And really, for us to be successful across both of those quotients, and it's proving more and more so important as we move into a more digital future, that the emotional side is what differentiates us and enables us to thrive. So that connection with nature, just being a good person is something that I'd be really focused on.
Yeah, and you said to me before we hit record, you've got your little one who's starting school. Is it tomorrow as well?
Yeah.
What's your words of advice for her going forward? What will you be whispering into her ear when she leaves for the day?
Oh, look, she just loves being at home, and because we got the land here, we just see such a transformation. We forage mushrooms, and she'll eat those mushrooms, and that's her favorite food. She loves picking herbs directly from the garden and so forth. So for us, it's more about just encouraging her to be brave, because she just wants to be here.
Yeah, oh, that is so gorgeous. She's got like this beautiful land to live on. Why would she want to go anywhere?
Yeah.
And she's got you and your wife as her teachers. And I know your upbringing was also quite magnificent with the leaders who were your parents and in your life. Tell us about how important they were in shaping the person that you became today.
Yeah, I mean, I think number one was that they always gave their best, their maximum effort to whatever they were doing. And I think that just by giving our best, we give so much, and it's pretty obvious if we're not. And so though, my father was the first to talk about diet causing disease in conventional medicine, and in Australia here and potentially the world, was back in the 70s, and he's worked till 20 years to get published in British Medical Journal. And once it finally did, things started to change, but it was a difficult 20 years. So I grew up through the 70s into the 80s, 90s, and my dad, being a professor, would lecture me a lot on the principles of what he believed formed great health. And then my mother's a medical scientist, and she would read the blood of my father's patients and check their nutrition levels and make sure that they could be as healthy as possible to deal with conventional treatments that Western medicine provides so well. So that kind of notion of being as healthy as you possibly can be to deal with whatever chronic condition that you face is something that they firmly believe. So it was all about making sure we were as healthy as possible. I mean, I've got my lunch here, which is sprouts and blackberries and so forth. And the reason why I eat the sprouts is because Dad's an oncologist. And he said, I've got this real challenge, and I recommend like cancer patients sprout. You can do these things to optimize your health and be better for it. And, you know, my father's Albanian background, born in Shepparton, so we would spend a lot of time on the farm there and picking fruit, weeding, living the dream, and playing cricket and all things like hide and seek and so forth into the wee hours of the morning that you do on the land. That was beautiful amongst the Mediterranean family background where, you know, dinner and lunch was shared together, cups of tea were shared together, and always a big event that were always very warm, and everyone would greet each other with hugs. And back again when I was growing up in the 70s, 80s, it wasn't the thing to do, males to hug each other. So it was a beautiful thing to see that happen as a natural thing very young. And then my mother, she's a refugee from the Czech Republic, and, you know, just driven with accountability, and she'd keep me very accountable. Nagging is something that would become a key principle of becoming a good manager later on, but doing it in a way that was positive. But she was probably on the edge of sometimes not being positive, but that's okay. That was just her wanting the best for me, to make the most of the opportunities that they had created for us through good fortune and hard work.
A skill I probably need to learn is nagging with not sounding negative. It's excellent that you had that opportunity to learn from your family so much. I do know quite a few number of people in your family, actually, and it does seem there's so many high achievers for some reason. I think it is, you know, a trait that you pass on to one another, which is absolutely beautiful, and help out each other when it's needed, which is great. And you've employed a lot of family members in the past, haven't you? You've had people around you that you know and trust in your leadership journey.
100%, and that's always been something that kind of I've actively encouraged, is hire people, you know, friends, family, hold them to a higher standard, openly say that you're going to do that for it to work. And, you know, from a young age, I was worked out that I could be paid for my work or my personal development, and I was doing university and paying for that, and at the same time I had a part-time job at a cinema. And I quickly worked out that I needed to manage my mates if I wanted to get ahead and learn the skill of business and be paid for it. And part of the skill of business is managing people and not being a dick about it, and being consistent that in the workplace and, you know, outside of it, you're that same person, and being confident enough that, you know, you'll hold their respect if you ask them to do something in the workplace and still hang out with them afterwards. So that's how you kind of get a nous for, you know, purpose and connection, and having the right people around you to deliver that. We'd definitely hire people outside of our circles, and that would work as well. But, you know, not being afraid to lean into those relationships really, really helped me get ahead in my career many times.
How good is that? And I know you talk about what it takes a lot in your book, and I'm so excited to jump into it more when you release it. But in your opinion, I think it takes a certain type of person to be a leader at that level and to have the mindset of an entrepreneur or a CEO. What are, in your opinion, some of the attributes that are crucial for such positions?
Yeah, I kind of take a step back and start at the whole notion of making sure you come in with the right mindset. And for me, the greatest example is, say, the 100-meter runner, which every one of us have a chance to be the fastest in the world. You know, it's not an elitist sport. You can see whether you can run or not. And so truly the antithesis of the greatest sports people in the world is a 100-meter runner. So you have to be blessed to be able to be a 100-meter runner at a global level. But then you have to sacrifice and make a whole lot of commitments that enable you to, I suppose, differentiate at that kind of top whatever percent, or 1% in that case, or 0.001. And so you're throwing everything at it to be the ultimate professional to deliver an outcome. And, you know, in that sort of 10 years, you make sacrifices to be that number one. And so you've got to work out what sacrifices you're prepared to make to get the most out of your professional career. And I just can't stand when people are at work and not engaged and not choosing to be professional about it, and understanding that, yes, if they want to progress, I'm okay if people want to work to a certain level and that's what they're really happy with, and they've got a good level of work-life balance or integration with their lifestyle, that it flows nicely, and they're very happy with that. But those that want to progress and want to make the kind of most of the opportunity that the business can present, you need to give your absolute all and be relentless about it. And so having a kind of circle that works, and this is why I talk about work-life integration, is that kind of you're accepting that work's a big part of your life and this is part of your purpose, and you'll probably do, if you're really driven by your purpose, some level of work throughout. I've tried not working after I had the fortune of selling Swisse, and it wasn't great for me. I needed to be doing something, and by doing something, that's why we've done what we've done in our societies as long as we have, because it works, and we like getting together, and we like working on challenges and improving our lifestyles as a result of that. So it's a system that works and has served us well. So yeah, bring your all, be professional, and choose to be elite at what you do.
Taking a quick minute to interrupt this conversation to let you know about something exciting I am growing. As you might know, I'm incredibly passionate about helping people to find and share their voice, especially if their voice is one that aims to create positive change in others. And I've launched a podcast network with purpose. It's called the Guide Your Light Network, that features podcasts and voices that inspire, educate, and transform listeners. And we have a library of podcasts that are part of our network that truly embody that mission, and we're looking for more. If this has sparked interest in you and you are ready to start exploring speaking and using your voice in this way, I'd love for you to check it out. Also, if you have something important to say and you don't know where to start to bring that to life, we can also help you to craft your authentic message through our Guide Your Light online sessions to help you get super clear on your intention, messaging, and structure needed to launch a podcast of your own that is authentically you. Just head over to guideyourlightnetwork.com. And when it comes to the building of the business, so looking at things from the shoes of the leader and directing the strategy of the business, do you feel like there's got to be a particular type of crazy to have that mindset? Are there particular minds that can do that in a way that requires to see the gaps in areas, to be willing to put it all on the line, to take the bigger risks, all of those types of things that other people who are just happy working in a 9-to-5 job and going home for the night might not be comfortable to do?
I think to get massive results, you need to be prepared to take massive risk. And that comes from some level of reinvention. And reinvention isn't easy. And how you create reinvention that recognizes what are the primary things that will make a business or product successful, and then how are you going to deliver it in a way that's to a category perhaps that's mature and needs some kind of new positioning, or how are you going to reinvent how someone uses their phone, all of the great things we've seen in kind of massive transformation over time through our own lifestyles have come from the rules being broken or an intersect of two industries coming together and that creating a kind of a new industry as a result of that. Who would have thought, I use the phone example, that would suddenly be a computer and many other things on top of that. So it's this kind of confluence of what works in other industries and bringing them together without losing a kind of the core of what the fundamental is. Say, for the phone example, that it's a phone and it was there for communication first. So you can kind of build these new opportunities and reinvent the rules around that. And that's what we dig deep into the book and examples of how we did that throughout our time at Swisse, and even in our time as Light Warrior, as an investment group, and also the businesses that we're involved with today.
Yeah, there is a lot of disrupting going on from your end. When it comes to disrupting, and I've heard Lisa Messenger say this before, and when she launched her Collective Hub magazine, she was not involved in publishing whatsoever, had never worked with magazines, but wanted to launch a magazine and decided that she didn't really want to know the background of how publishing worked, because if she knew the ins and outs of how it worked, then she'd follow that lead. And in order to disrupt, she wanted to just have that sort of vague awareness of how it worked and carve her own path, which I think is really an exciting way to think about it. What do you think about that? Or do you believe knowing everything you need to know in the industry and then being able to sort of pick apart what you think is working and isn't?
Yeah, so I think that I always talk to the fact that we all have superpowers, and you think of a basketball team, and there's 5 players that play in that basketball team and a couple on the bench. But the players that are on the field, one of them will be better at free throws, one will be better at 3-pointers, the other will be better at defending. And so you go and you practice what you're really good at, and you become better as a result of that. So I try and make sure that we focus on things that we're really good at and do more of that. And having had a career where I worked at Village Roadshow in entertainment, but I had a father that was a professor of surgery, lecturing to me about nutrition and so forth. I kind of grew up with this kind of bipolar interests going on that are quite different from each other, but then we brought them together by creating a lifestyle brand at Swisse, which wasn't happening in the nutrition category at all. It was all about how to solve for your UTI or your IBS, which is a urinary tract infection, or a irritable bowel syndrome. And it's not really barbecue talk, but it serviced the market, and it created the opportunity where would walk in and you'd see the cosmetic section or the perfume section with beautiful people. What's more beautiful than being healthy and nutritious, and our health and wellness to talk about. And so we created this kind of complex of two industries, and that became what we were knowing, that we had a product that had the highest retention in the category. And so we kind of just relook at, all right, we're good at wellness, then how can we then borrow other things that we've been good at as well, and then trot those out in what we do. Well, my business partner, who came from Goldman's, who sold our business at Swisse, he focuses on the banking side, and we've created one of the largest impact funds in the country, and we provide housing, or largest amount of housing in the disability space, and some of the largest housing in the social housing, affordable housing space. And we're providing also investment returns of 7 to 12%, and so which is funds management grade, and so superannuation funds can invest in that, and we've got the largest pension funds in the world, and so why not point those funds to making our society better and more equitable, but use the dynamics of capitalism to do that. And so that's me coming from it. How do we invest in with purpose? We're trying to do those investments with some of the funds we had from Swisse, and there weren't many options, and so we went and created our own one through the principles of having someone that was very strong in banking. But then I kind of had this background of culture and purpose, and wanting to improve what we do as a society.
I absolutely love that, and I love how your zone of genius can be brought across different industries and implemented and spiraled out, and that's how you disrupt. That is absolutely brilliant. And I love what you're doing at Light Warrior. I think it's really important work. I almost see it as a pay it forward type of situation with, what you've been able to achieve with your life, and then being able to pay it forward to other brands and organizations who have a big purpose-led mission. Tell us more about, who you're backing, what the goal is for Light Warrior, and where it's going for 2024 as well.
Yeah, so we sold our business to a big international company. Our business had become the biggest brand. Swisse had become the biggest brand in China. It wasn't for me. I was 3 weeks on a plane every month. It was time for transition, and so we sold it to a Chinese partner. It's very difficult to be a number one brand that's foreign owned in China. Just the culture, the law systems, everything is very different. So it was the right time to sell the business, but we wanted to make sure that we improved the system here in Australia as much as we could, because it had provided so much for us. So firstly, I spend 50% of my time doing community work. supporting mostly entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs in the space, doing hands-on community work where they are supporting disadvantaged people, supporting First Nations people, and basically what I found when we kind of went headlong into doing this sort of work is that I've gained so much. They mentor me, these people, the people that are bravely dealing with the circumstance that they've had no influence over creating, or some amount of influence, because we're all human as well, and how brave they are in coming back and wanting to do what they do has provided so much inspiration and purpose for me, but also for our businesses that we invest in. And so Light Warrior is set up to bring light to the world. We're warriors using the system to do that. We've got our foundation called Light Folk, which is, again, these are the good folk and all of us have this goal of bringing light to the world. And it's what my wife said to me when she first fell in love with me. She said, "You're my Light Warrior." So I thought, it's a cool name. So we'll call out our investment group that. And we love how people at first freak out about, I'm going to go work for Light Warrior, but then after 10 minutes of thinking about it, that's a great name. What better place to work? And so we went far and wide to start with, because we thought, Richard Branson's got over 60 different businesses and does that very, very well. But that really wasn't for me. It was exhausting. It was 7 days a week. And what I found exhausting about it is that whilst we're across 15, 20 odd businesses, you're acting as a director, and yes, it was less work as a CEO, but there was more work in getting into people's issues in their business and the challenges they face. And you have 15 to 20 different industries, starting to try to get your head around all those moving parts. It was just exhausting. So what we found, and we weren't doing a great job at it either, what we found was to go back to focusing what we're really good at: banking, finance through Adam, and then wellness, purpose through the work I've done, and kind of fusing those together and then complementing each other really, really well. So you've got to look at the resources you have around you and kind of build what you're going to do really well as a result of what you bring, but also others that are connected with you in some way, shape, form, through business or whatever else that you're working on. The best partnerships in life, so like the one you should have with your partner you've chosen for life, where they are kind of bringing out the best in you and you're bringing out the best in them. Not always easy, but you always have this aspiration of continual improvement. So as a result of that focus now, I feel like we're really great in impact investment, and we do wellness businesses very well. And Wanderlust is a great passion of ours and is certainly doing things differently out there at the moment.
I love that. And I love that you identify what was working, what wasn't, and then filtering it into making sure it was successful and staying on track. I laugh when you talk about the name Light Warrior. My business is called Guide Your Light. And I had words with someone recently and he said, "I think it sounds too spiritual." And I was like, So that was something that I was pondering as well. But I love that you had that same experience with Light Warrior. And, at the end of the day, people get comfortable with the name after a little while and it just becomes something that you say. But I love the name. I'd be definitely drawn towards that name for sure.
Yeah. And then what's wrong with being too spiritual? There's nothing wrong with that. It's a beautiful thing. Like, good on you.
I want to talk about Wanderlust a little bit and the True North Festival. Probably by the time I release this, it's done, it's gone, and you will have spoken on stage and motivated all of the people that are coming on board. But tell us about what your role is there, what you're doing, and a bit about the conversation that you'll be having on stage as well.
Yeah, sure. So with Wanderlust, that was the largest yoga festival in the world pre-COVID. We had 50 events going on around the world, and it was an initiative that I thought was genius back in my time at Swisse. We brought out the colour run from the US, and we had 250,000 people enjoying the prospect of having colour thrown at them at one of our events, and they were fantastic fun and worked really, really well and raised lots of money for charity. So I was looking for the next initiative, knowing that people were probably going to get tired of having colour thrown at them. So we tried to get the Wanderlust Festival, which was this yoga music festival. At that time, the license was owned by someone else. And then, thankfully, through a series of events for me, it didn't work out for them. But it was 5 years later, after I'd left Swisse, we were living in LA a bit, having IVF for our daughter. And it's a wonderful backdrop for wellness, LA. It's kind of the antithesis for kind of all the new products and new trends that happen in the space. And what I saw there was something that I tried back at Swisse to enable one time, because there's a bit of was a bit of a cartel over who sold liquid herbals in Australia. And it was only naturopaths and practitioners that you could buy the product through, and they generally didn't taste that great. And in the US, they started selling them in little droppers. They still didn't taste that great. So we spent 2 years working away on how we could make a pleasant tasting herbal formula that was only used natural ingredients like orange essence or kind of lemon extracts as well, to kind of get the best taste out of these herbs. And so we did that. And we created a plant-based range based on the Ayurvedic principles of yoga, which connected into Wanderlust beautifully and naturally, and this whole notion of meditation, which has been a huge tool for me in getting me through some of the most challenging times, but also just enabling me to enjoy life like I should. And so, the events still carry on, and they're called True North these days. We have a Wanderlust range of herbal supplements that's in over 3,000 retailers across the country. And we're looking forward to getting the model right and then taking that overseas. We have some really big names slated that I can't really talk about over the next 12 months, but they're very well-known wellness identities that are very capable entertainers as well, that will be coming out over the next 12 months. But on the stage in February, I'll be talking to my new book and sharing insights like we've talked to, but I'll be sharing the stage with Sarah Wilson. I quit sugar, and she's a great personality in kind of talking about her journey to wellness from MasterChef. And then we've got Paul Roos and Tammy Roos. Paul Roos was the coach of the Sydney Swans as well as Melbourne, and won a few premierships and perhaps laid the groundwork for Melbourne's first premiership in a long time as well. And his principles around creating purpose and having that kind of logic of only being surrounded by good people very early on there at the Swans. He brought meditation with his wife being a coach to professional sport and mindset, and really professionalised the way that's kind of now the part of every grand final winning team at the moment in kind of their connection to purpose and also meditation. So he'll be talking to those principles. We've got an Aboriginal singer, Gawara, who won Aboriginal Artist of the Year and sings in his native tongue, which is amazing. It's just so connected with nature and earth, and you never hear anything like it except for Gurmal perhaps. And then we've also got Isabel Lucas speaking as well about her strong beliefs in wellness and kind of her connection to beekeeping and nature and her being an all-round earth mama.
It's set to be an amazing display of talent and insight and wellness and health that are all the good things in life, no doubt. How do you feel about being in stage and public speaking these days? Just like a duck to water, or does it fire up the nerves for you?
Look, I did go through a period where talking about my time at Swisse would kind of trigger a form of PTSD, and it would be really quite difficult. I'd kind of zone out and go back to what it felt like to go through what we went through, which was really quite difficult at times. And you want to recount the difficult stories because that's what everyone wants to hear about, is how you got through those times. So that was quite difficult. But now I've found by, meditating prior to speaking, creating space, and also making sure that I stick to talking to subjects that bring joy, but also if I'm sharing a challenging story, there's kind of a learning from it that I know others will gain as a result of me sharing my fragilities.
Yeah, I can imagine it is hard to continuously share the same stories, especially if they were challenging for you as well. So it's nice to know that there's so many new things coming up for you that you're able to share with the audience and inspire and motivate them to keep going. I want to know about Radek at the heart and soul of this. So I know you've been through a lot of work, done the work, so to speak, on yourself and gotten to know yourself on a really deep level. I know you love yoga, you love meditation, which you've talked about a lot. You probably spend more time on your own now that you're living on a big block of land, you've moved cities. Can you describe the relationship that you have with yourself these days?
It's much better than it's been. I was pretty tough on myself, and still am in some ways, and that's only natural. I always expect more from what I could do and can do, and perhaps push myself a little bit harder than I should or need to. But again, that's the makeup of who I am, and I really like in life to something I've really gained from yoga, which I took up late over the last sort of 5 years. I thought if I'm going to do an Ayurvedic wellness brand, I've got to really get into this thing, yoga. So I've started practicing 2-3 times a week. And the best thing that was ever shared with me was on this yoga retreat recently, where the teacher talked about, yoga and a session of yoga is just like life, where, you have moments of bliss where it feels just outstanding. And there are really challenging times. And the yoga teacher, a good yoga teacher, should tell you to smile when it hurts a bit, because we've got to practice. It's like in life, a yoga lesson. We've got to practice dealing with those elements of bliss through to the hard parts and smiling into them and not being so shocked when things go bad, because that's life. It does happen and it can be stressful, but push through it with a great attitude. You'll generally, see it out better than what you're going to see it out if you just choose to fall in the hole. And the moments of just where you think, when's this going to finish too? And that happens in life too. And how you kind of spread that out and exercise that regularly is just as important as the physical part, the stretching part and getting the body moving, but also the mental part of that's life. And, don't lean into those feelings and understand it and recognize them and just accept them as part of, our makeup as humans.
What a great analogy. I absolutely love that. I know it's going to make you uncomfortable, this question, because people don't like talking positively about themselves, but what do you like most about yourself? What is the attribute about Radek Rudolph Sali that you love the most?
I'd say that let's talk about perhaps what's annoying about me, because that's probably something I like doing a lot and I like about myself. And it's probably my relentless, positive, constructive way of thinking, in kind of saying, no, there's a way here, we can get it done, let's talk it through. Or I can be sometimes too solutions focused. I do like to sit and listen, and that's been a challenge for me to make that transition, but it's something I've had to work on. So naturally, I've got a pretty positive disposition, and I've been told many times that you're so save the worldy, but I like that about you.
Does it annoy people, do you think?
I think that it can be challenging, yes. Annoying, yes, too. Probably those closest to me sometimes find that annoying, but no, that's okay. That's part of what makes us so interesting.
I love a big dose of positivity, so you can be positive. You can sprinkle your positive magic around me anytime, Radek. I want to know, are there any talents or gifts that you've got that you haven't utilized yet or you'd like to utilize?
Writing this book is something that I didn't think I'd ever do, and something that I've exercised and got the right people around me to help me make it happen. And so that is exciting, and that's why I'm keen to travel the country and share our story, travel other cities and internationally as well, because the book has relevance in the US and China and so forth for business. So I'm looking forward to doing that. That's something I haven't done before, and that'll be fun, and I think I'll be okay at it.
How do you feel getting out of your comfort zone? Does it light you up, being uncomfortable? Does it help you to grow?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing we ever did at Swisse early on was say from the start that we were a changed culture, and we make no apologies for that. And as humans, we've got to remember we're creatures of habit, and change isn't something that comes naturally to us. We like to brush our teeth every night at a similar time. We like to go to bed at similar time, get up at a similar time, and we like to stay in our own home. And so we are, that's why we've got a saying for it in Creatures for Habit. So we need support to change, and we've all had some kind of personal training, and can you imagine going to a personal trainer or the PE teacher at school, and they go, do your 10 push-ups, and they say you look really tired after one, and you're never going to get through this. A lot of workplaces are exactly that. And so I think we would have massive benefit if we were so much more constructive and positive toward each other, and encouraging each other to achieve goals. So think about that in your workplace, and how much better your workplace could be if you could have a language governance in place that brought out the best in people.
Agree. And I was just having a conversation with someone before who was working at a commercial radio station, and she said to me, "Oh, I'm in the creative side, so I don't know too much about the sales side, but I wish I did." And we had that conversation around how the leadership team really tried to keep people in their lanes and doesn't allow them to sort of learn other pillars of the company, which people are actually interested in, which we believed, and this is what the conversation was that was actually going to help them in their careers and help them to be better at their roles by understanding the full aspect of what the company does. I don't know why it's not, I mean, obviously time and money and resources are one big thing, but I think that's something that should be looked at more so in big companies.
100%. And we'd regularly talk about how we're performing against our strategic goals as a team, in particular in our more difficult times at Swisse, so everyone could understand why things were difficult and why we needed to focus on what we were doing and who and what areas needed more support. And so your business will become stronger if you can galvanize them around, a shared purpose, and that might be a challenging purpose. And if everyone understands that things are challenging, it becomes a whole lot easier to get everyone to work harder, help turn things around, just treat people as humans.
Exactly right. All right, I've got two last questions. One is, well, you've laughed a lot in this, so I like this. I like that you've laughed a lot, but what makes you laugh out loud generally? If you're like me, I like watching people fall over, and it's terrible, but as long as they don't hurt themselves, I find it very comical. People trip over.
Well, right now it's sort of like tickling my 5-year-old. We both laugh a lot about that, and then I also have a little bit of a fascination for kind of doing the rocket ship in the swimming pool at the moment, where she jumps out of my hands and
Dirty Dancing style.
Yeah, and she loves it, and I love it too. So I do laugh out loud when that's happening.
Oh, that's gorgeous. All right, based on the name of the podcast, Things You Can't Unhear, what has been something in your life that you heard that stopped you in your tracks and really propelled you to think differently or act differently in some way?
I was very privileged, and I don't really remember quotes, but this is one that stuck with me since I heard it 4 years ago. I was very privileged to hear Graça Machel, who was Nelson Mandela's wife when he passed away, and was First Lady of South Africa, and also First Lady of Mozambique, and very famously led the education department in government and got Mozambique from one of the lowest reading rates in the world to one of the highest through her time. She's an amazing, inspiring female, and she said that 50% of us come from females and the other half are female. And to me, it's such a powerful quote in the fact that, really the system that we're living in is a male-driven system that is, built by a whole lot of insecure males that are trying to hold on to this way of how we live. And we're seeing it change in front of us, which is a beautiful thing. And the world is becoming a friendlier place as a result of that. There are a few angry old men that are holding on and probably causing a lot of the challenges we have now in the world. So we need this rise of the feminine to happen, and the rise of this beautiful balance that we have as humanity, as males and females.
I love that so much. And the fact that you're raising a young lady as well just really propels that forward too. Thank you so much, Radek, for your time today. I absolutely loved every moment of this conversation. I look forward to reading the remaining chapters of your book. When are you officially launching, and when can people get their hands on it?
So I'll get my first hard copy, I'm told, in the next week, and it will be on bookshelves in 4 weeks' time. So we'll make sure you get one in a week's time.
March 2024. Amazing.
Yeah.
And I believe we can pre-order it too. So I'll pop that link in the show notes for people who are excited as I am to get their hands on this book. And for those of you who are visiting Wanderlust, make sure you let us know how the wonderful Radek was on stage. Thank you again for everything today, Radek, and congratulations on everything you've achieved so far.
You're the best. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the show. What did you think? And what did you feel? Let us know by leaving me a message on the Things You Can't Unhear Instagram community page. And if you can, give us some ratings love on your favourite listening platform.